technical difficulties never hurt anybody.
That's fine. All good. Welcome in the Awesemo betting show on the Awesemo Odds channel. It's myself. It's Ben Rasa. Jordan is producing. BetMGM is powering the program with the odds. And, of course, you on the chat telling us what to lock it up, your most confident play of the night, or maybe you're getting ahead of something on Saturday. Ben loves when you tell him to lock something up Saturday evening on some low-end game that nobody else is paying attention to. But we have bigger fish to fry for Thursday night football as the Rams and Seahawks on the NFL slate. Maybe, you never know if Coastal and Arkansas State will insert themselves into the program. But Ben, I know we tend to do this, especially on the Thursday show, right? Real quick look back and pat ourselves on the back and anything that we hit Monday night, or maybe just kind of move on. But from memory, I think the only thing that collectively you and I lost, and it was on my end, and Lofty too was dragged into this, was that stinking Roundtree prop. But I think everything else we gave out hit.
Real good Monday night. Eckler, I thought he got injured early. He returned to dominate.
Yes,
Chargers
scared
dominated.
The shit out of me and Lofty on that chat.
It was just good. And then Ruggs, it developed perfectly, hit one over the top to catch that longest reception prop. So it's always nice to get one like that. We're going to take that momentum into a really interesting game tonight. We got a big time matchup in the NFC West, two playoff caliber teams. And with the Rams, I'm interested to see if they can bounce back off what was a pretty disappointing effort against Arizona.
Now, I noticed you glossed over the under first half and under game that also hit there. So you never know.
That's your wheelhouse. But no, it was
just
really
hate to acknowledge the total going anything low. I love it.
What can I say? But no, I was really happy with it. Sometimes the game unfolds like you should, and hopefully we get that tonight.
What is, and just looking at this game itself, because I think one thing that we've been able to do, and you and me to a lesser extent, kind of following your lead here, is build a game script, is kind of build, and not a narrative by any means, but just kind of build what we think is going to happen. Seattle is just so difficult to count out Russell Wilson. We get that. And clearly with two wide receivers now that are healthy enough to be out there at the same time, recognize it. But also it's just, I think, human nature to expect a bounce back from the Rams following that really disappointing loss against the Cardinals where Matthew Stafford was just all over the place. How do you see this game playing out? Before we even look at a side, any player props, how do you actually see this game playing out?
So, when you get in these divisional matchups, obviously these teams are familiar with each other. There's a lot to break down. I think it'll be a pretty competitive. I'm not trying to take a cop out, even though it's probably going to sound like it. I don't think that there is a super okay, this game is going to go this way. The Rams want to do this one specific thing and it's going to cause a domino effect. To me, it's two good teams that can move the ball. I expect it to be a pretty close game back and forth. Let's get into it. I do lean to the Rams. I think they're just a better team. They've got more balance. I want to see the status of the backfield, of course, but to me, it seems like a game where both teams will try to counterpunch and answer scores with scores, of course. Total's pretty healthy at 54. Just one of those games. I expect an entertaining one like most other people do.
Rams are on the road. Yep. I know they're laying the 2.5 we have here at BetMGM. You should be using our promo code Awesemo. Take full advantage of that. After you've hit the thumbs up button and subscribed here to the Awesemo Odds channel, use our promo code and we'll give you a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Then bet $10 at BetMGM and we'll give you 3 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. I wonder, when you say lean, I'm with you. I lean towards the Rams, and I'm not trying to be greedy by any means, but scenario here, right? Seahawks get the ball. They're at home. They need a win as much to avoid being in the bottom of this division moving forward as well. They get up 7-0 first quarter. What do you think that live line looks like for the Rams coming in as a 2.5-point favorite? And I bring this up because I think that just being under 3 can help us with the lot. Maybe that's just enough to move it a little more than it was pre-flop at 3.
I mean, in a game with a total north of 50 like this, I'm not saying a touchdown isn't important because it is, but it's not like these teams can't answer. There are certain games where it's going to be very methodical. And if you go down 10-0, it's like, how are they going to claw back? The Rams or the Seahawks, both of these teams have the talent to be able to counterpunch. There's no doubt in my mind. So if the Rams do go down and you want to either cost average, which means add another bet to your bet before the game starts, or you didn't bet the game and you say, you know what, this is good enough for me because now the Rams are, say, plus 130 on the money line and getting a point and a half, something like that. I don't mind that situation. So it's just a good team. Listen, I think Arizona showed that they have to be considered one of the dangerous teams. But when you look at the West, all these teams can beat each other. All these teams probably will beat each other in some regard. So I'm not going to say that the Rams aren't anything besides elite just based off one tough game last week.
The defense really is the big key here for me. And I don't know what I'm going to get from Seattle, but I know what I'm going to get, or should get at least, outside of what we got last week from in that Arizona game. I know that there are multiple levels pressuring the quarterback and a defensive back in that secondary that can take a lot of people out of a football game. It's just Russell Wilson. And that's what I keep going back to, which is, I don't care how many people you take, Chris Carson. I don't care how many people you strip away from Russell Wilson. Ben, it's Russell Wilson. And that's why I'm just kind of curious to see. I love the lean to the Rams with you, and I don't mind laying anything under 3 by all means. I think this is a bounce back, etc. But I kind of just want to see what Seattle is. Right. I kind of just want to maybe take 15 minutes of game time or maybe less if they come out and they score and see what Seattle is, because it's such a difficult variable to count on, pro or con, pre-flop with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, we've seen that for years with Seattle. I mean, we know they're that type of team. They certainly have the pieces. I do think defensively they're not nearly as strong as what they've been in recent years. And you look right now, and it's early, but they're 25th in rushing yards allowed per attempt at 4.6 yards per carry, 22nd in the league in opponents' yards per pass attempt, 7.5. They're not, it's not the Lions out there where they can't stop anybody, but at the same time, I do worry about them getting, and honestly, perfect timing by Chad. I was just about to say this. Seattle's lines on both sides of the ball, I think they could get whipped up front on both sides. And when you can't control that, it's almost impossible. Even with Russell Wilson doing all he can.
Super Monkey 22 with that observation right there.
I agree 100%.
And we'll get to it. And I'm going to come back to that comment when we start looking at a couple of player props. Do you have anything else on a side here? Is there think about this. Is there a scenario I can get Seahawks, Rams, halftime, full time, plus 600? That total first half is a little high, and at 26.5, you're covered with that 21, that field goal at 24. You're even covered with a 2-point conversion here at 26.5. It's equal. There's no favorable juice either way that you're laying here. So any of that scenario or two jump out to you, or maybe you're so confident. And we haven't really talked about this much because I don't think the opportunity necessarily always presents itself, but maybe you're so confident that you'll lay 3.5 as an alternative to a line here for the Rams coming into this. Is there anything non-player prop that I mentioned or didn't that you think is worthy of at least discussing?
So, alternative lines are always a little tricky because you most of the time you're sacrificing some value when you're doing it. If you're going to go, I wouldn't go to 3.5. I think that's kind of ridiculous because you're crossing 3 and you're getting plus 125. If I was going to do it, I'd probably go to 6.5 at plus 180 and just hope that the Rams, are just really able to impose their will. I still don't think it's enough in all honesty, but that's probably the best number that I see. I don't think I go higher than that. And 3.5, I mean, you're saving juice, but that's not enough.
What about a winning margin of 1-6 at plus 310?
I mean, those things are, I don't bet those for obvious reasons, but I don't even know how you'd go about that. I don't like things like that because it's like you could get it all right and then the team is too good. Your team blows them out and you lose. That's a little weird.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. All right,
Yeah.
I had to
Don't be
slide
messing
it
around
in.
with those.
I had to slide it in there just to see. Look, I think if you're on the Rams winning this football game, which you and I are ultimately on winning this football game, there are two scenarios that you may be able to play. Again, is it worth a half a unit? Maybe. Is it worth a quarter unit? Probably, to put a tie Rams halftime full time bet out there at plus 1,800. The likelihood that Seattle plays the Rams tight. You're also on a very narrow scope of trying to get that tie intact there. But, like Seahawks Rams, I mentioned plus 600 as well, where I think those are a little bit more manageable than trying to throw a dart with your eyes closed of a winning margin. Again, if I had to choose one that we haven't talked about, I would look long and hard at going under 26.5 first half points. It's a primetime game. I think we see offenses try and extend some drives. Yes, there are some big play guys on both ends here, but based on what we've seen with unders hitting in primetime, it's probably more of a second half explosion than we see a first half explosion. Divisional opponents, Ben Rasa, who know each other and want to keep the other guy off the field if it's Stafford and his weapons or Russell Wilson. So I think if there's anything that we mentioned before we hit a player proper 10 here, I'm going to play this, actually. I'm going to go under 26.5 first half.
I don't mind that. I'm not going to play a total, I'll be honest, but if I had to, I would lean under. You mentioned a couple of things that I do want to highlight in the Rams. So far, they don't play fast really. And when you look at the tempo, they actually play faster in the second half. And besides the Arizona game, they've been winning these games, but it really hasn't mattered. That's just how they operate. So that is something to keep in mind right now. And again, this is somewhat noisy, but plays per game, the Rams 26th in the league at 59 plays per game. Seattle's dead last in the league at only 52 plays per game. So both of these teams so far have been in games that have been more methodical based, even though they're very efficient teams at times. They don't run a lot of plays. So in that regard, I don't mind it. You have some home run ability and we got playmakers all over the field and we're going to get to them, but I do see the angle that you're coming at there.
What do you like as far as the best opportunity? And again, hit that thumbs up button, please. You're in here watching, hanging with us. You see what we have at the top of the screen offering for you with BetMGM. On top of that, you can use our promo code Awesemo, get a risk-free bet of up to $1,000. You bet 10, you get 3 months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. And hit us up. I saw in the beginning, I think it was Shelton, was somebody telling us to lock something up, but we always request that you hit us up with your lock it up bet of the night, of the week, of the weekend, what have you. Let's move to some player props here. And again, coming off a pretty impressive Monday where I think the majority, if not all, hit close to it at the very least. Where to begin here with some player props?
Yeah, so it's tricky in the backfield just because we're a little confused at exactly how healthy Henderson is. He's barring something really ridiculous, he's going to play. It looks like that's almost a guarantee. He had 14 carries for 89 yards against Arizona. And he had 6 targets, 5 receptions in that game. So he was pretty active. And I think we could see that here. I do look at his rushing yards. You get 67.5. Pretty good number in my mind. Like I said, Seattle 25th at stopping the run and rushing yards allowed per attempt. If you're going to tell me he's going to get that type of volume, and I look at his line, rushing attempts is at 15.5 over under. It is juiced slightly to the under, but if you're going to give me 15 attempts in a game, I think the Rams win. That's where I'm going to start. I think Henderson pushes over 67.5 tonight.
Wow, that's a great play there, especially if you like LA up. We know that healthy enough to be out there clearly, and it's not going to be anything, Michelle's not vulturing anything away from him when Henderson's healthy, right? So both plays exactly. You like, or just, I'm sorry?
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say both plays or just the attempts?
So I think with attempts, it can get a little noisy. I use that more as an indicator for what type of volume I might get to place my rushing yards play. So I trust Vegas immensely. So I say, okay, they're saying that Henderson is a slight dog to have just under 15 carries in this game. So let's gauge him at 14 or 15 carries. So that means that I'm going to need about 4 yards rushing per carry. And then I look at Seattle and I say right now they're giving up 4.6 yards per rushing attempt. I think Henderson's a very talented back, and I think the Rams are going to win the game. All that's good enough for me to make a play. If he can get in that 4.5 yards rushing, he's going to be very close. 4 yards rushing at 15 carries is 60 yards. So he'd be just south of it. I think that's a pretty fair number. I do lean over for Henderson tonight.
Just real quick here on the chat, Chris G, under rushing yards for Carson. He's off the board, clearly, with that. And look, that's factored into other people as well.
Yeah, so that's a tricky situation because he's questionable tonight. So if you have a book out there and he is up and you get some indication that he's going to be limited, obviously you want to take advantage of that. We don't have that option here. So for that, I see Henderson as an interesting play. Russell Wilson is always fascinating to me, particularly on the ground, because he is really, in my mind, apprehensive to run unless he has to. He doesn't run unless they really need him to run. And when he does, he's very effective. It's a pretty lofty number at 24.5 for a guy. Right now, his carries 4, 3, 3, and 5 through the first 4 games. So you're going to have to break a pretty sizable run on one of them to get there.
Well, think about this. And this is why we talk about stuff on Thursday, but we always go back to what happens earlier in the week, especially on a short week for teams. And I tagged you and Lofty and maybe a couple of other people on this tweet October 5th at 8:25 p.m. Eastern time because again, Tuesday night, right? October 5th. Yeah. Tuesday night, there was still a lot of doubt, but not certainty about Chris Carson not playing. So immediately, and this is where I think people need to look at what's going on from an ancillary standpoint. Okay, Chris Carson's out. What does that do? What's the biggest impact of Chris Carson being out? And in my opinion, and based on what you've laid out and how this thing is moved, it's Russell Wilson just gaining maybe 1 to 3 more attempts on the ground out of necessity or by design. Tuesday night, this was 20.5. 20.5, and I jumped in over. Now, and Ben, I love me some QB rushing props. it just 4 points of movement, and maybe I'm looking at this wrong, so that's why I come back to you. Like, I'm already in, so I'm not compelled to make this bet, and I'm not going to make this bet. But I'm also looking at this and thinking, yeah, I would tell anybody in the world to jump in over 20.5, but at 24.5 and the movement of 4 yards in 2 days, that may be too much for me to give out an over. I'm not going to go under. I just think at this point, I'm going to stay away from it.
Yeah, I mean, you've obviously captured the value. To me, at this point, I would shy under. I think there's still a lot of ways that they just go. Seattle's had running back issues in the past, and they just go to the next guy, and that could be Collins tonight, or Carson could play. You do have the opportunity. I wouldn't recommend this. You could go under 24.5, and then you would have a 4-point middle.
It's tough.
It's just with rushing yards, it's not exactly an ideal situation, right. But the value has been sucked out of that. The Carson news has affected the line, and now it's probably priced pretty efficiently.
There's one other Wilson impacted by no Chris Carson that I wanted to throw out, and I don't think you're going to get insane value by any means. But look, Russell Wilson, because you mentioned, the limited carries, but also we've seen him run, especially if he can break one, he can get around. He can get around the edge. He can get in the end zone. Russell Wilson, anytime TD, Ben, is plus 300 on BetMGM. Do you have any interest in that? I actually thought it would be in the 200s with no Carson, but it's still at 3-1.
So I get the angle there. My biggest issue is that they're not say Carson doesn't play. It's not like they're replacing him with like a scat bag, a guy that's like Alex Collins is an ideal candidate to carry around the goal line. I don't think that they're worried about that. So some of the allure is kind of taken away there. Now, more and more teams are quickly realizing that if you have a quarterback that doesn't run frequently and you set up in shotgun and you just pull the ball, more often than not, you can walk into the end zone with your quarterback. Is it possible that Russell Wilson does just that? Of course it's possible. But I do think one of the main things is who is replacing the back. Unfortunately, with Collins, I don't think that that's going to make them any more likely to do something dynamic around the goal line. So I kind of play that pretty straight up. I would pass.
All right, so let's look now. What bounce around here is I gave you that over 20.5.
Mm-hmm.
So the value is clearly gone, and that's why you should be paying attention to what we're doing on Twitter at JazzRazDFS, at Shander Show for me here. One more for you. Let's throw it back, another player prop or two that we each have here.
So I mentioned Henderson. I'm going to go to another guy. Obviously, Cooper Kupp has been unbelievable all year. There's no doubt that he is the leader of this passing attack, but don't let it think that just because he demands massive target share, that there's not other targets to go around. And Tyler Higbee quietly has been a really reliable weapon for Matthew Stafford. So far this year, 18 targets, which isn't massive in 4 games, but he's turned it into 15 catches. And I really like that. He's converting most of these. His prop tonight, over under 3.5 receptions. It's come up a little bit. It's up to -125. I got this earlier in the week when me and Josh broke down this game. You can find it right on the Awesemo Odds channel. It was -115. So I am on the right side, I believe. I think Higbee will be involved tonight. This is the guy underneath, really reliable targets. Stafford looks to him. He had 6 targets in his last game, 5 targets in the game before. And again, he's converting basically all of these into receptions. We just need 4 or more here. And then the last thing I'll say, Seattle's been average at best against tight ends so far this year. Yeah, they're giving up over 5 catches per game to the position. I don't see why that would change with Higbee. So over 3.5 receptions tonight for Tyler Higbee. That's a sneaky one. I think that's worth considering.
I really want to play Higbee anytime, but I don't know if it's worth it. Now, this has moved 20 points in our favor here. This was around 200 the last day or so, and it's now at plus 220. What you could do if you wanted a little bit more of a bang for your return, especially since we're both on LA outright winning this game, is Higbee to score and the Rams to win. But even that is at plus 280. So I would rather anytime score be 280 and the score and win would be somewhere around 320. 340 to jump in. I'm not going to get that, but I am curious when you look at how you've broken down the Higbee prop to add something like a scoring prop behind it.
I mean, I don't mind looking at things like that, certainly, but you got to be careful in the sense that sometimes it just doesn't look right. You know, you'll be like, okay, if this guy, you know, his anytime TD prop is close to the prop of him scoring and the team winning, and you're adding extra steps that you need to take for not enough value. So I always say with that stuff, it's not a bad idea to look to them. I know we cashed a couple good ones, Ertz earlier in the year in a game like that. But, you know, if you think Higbee scores, that's good enough for me. I don't know if I would want to. Obviously, it's correlated him scoring that makes the Rams much more likely to win the game, of course. But I still think you don't want to mess around. And on the flip side, you could do it the other way. Like if you like the Rams to win this game, you're not laying massive juice. Like, hone in on that and don't worry about who scores. So to me, it's fun, maybe a small unit play, but you don't want to start parlaying things up because you're really losing a lot of value every time you do it.
And that's the thing too, where again, like from the confidence standpoint, okay, Higbee scores. And if you like that bet, then great. But the return at 220, just even with movement, 20 points of movement, it seems low.
Higbee,
for a guy, what?
Yeah. He's plus 222 anytime touchdown scorer in the game. Then you need the Rams to win for an extra 60 cents. To me, that's right. That is not worth it.
I'm just saying, forget that second one there. I'm just saying plus 220 alone to score seems pretty low to jump in from a value standpoint. Like, shouldn't that be, in your opinion, somewhere? I mean, the guy's got one receiving touchdown this year. Shouldn't that be a little bit higher? Maybe 260, 280?
I don't like it. It definitely doesn't stand out at plus 220, but I think the point to make more is that this is where you can get into trouble. Like, if you're going to do that, okay. But to me, that's a much better bet than betting them to score. And now you still need the Rams to win in a game that's going to have, 8 touchdowns to go around. That's a dangerous game.
No, I only brought that up as something. I'm sorry,
it's a good point
because I didn't mean that to be the bet. All right, let me throw this one out at you. And this is the last prop that I have. We'll lock it up. I'll throw a Thursday teaser out here as well. But here's the thing. And thanks, Mark Dill. I appreciate that. This is not easy by any means. This is a mastered talent here. Seriously. Now, again, like this is not just me. This is not like hitting a golf ball 350 yards at 1%. I guarantee you that if Laffy was forced to hold his young daughter on the air while doing a show, he'd look better than me. So,
well, I would not be able to do that. So power to both of you.
Look, 3.5 months ago, I thought I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what happens when somebody throws you into the deep end of the pool, Ben.
Trial by fire. That's what we do around the Awesemo Odds channel. We don't pull any punches.
All right. There are two guys here, real quick. There are two guys, and they're both similar in how they're being used in this game. We'd anticipate based on how they've been used throughout. And that's Van Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson. So for Van Jefferson, I thought 43.5. Granted, one catch, I understand that, but that's still a big number, especially if the Rams are up and maybe there isn't as much of a shot or two downfield. Now, again, I'm not going to use that as the be-all, end-all. I'm just going to say it seemed like it was pretty high. Now, Van's longest reception is at 20.5. And I would think, based on having many conversations with you about this specific prop, it stands to reason that if Van only has one grab, it's going to be over 20.5 yards as opposed to over 43.5 yards. So I know, again, he's probably going to be significantly limited in targets, but that's one of my favorite props because I think that number is low from a longest reception yard, although it's probably more accurate for total reception yards.
Yeah, there is something there that I think we've kind of uncovered on this show a little bit, where there are certain receivers on teams where if they get there, it's going to be on a massive play, most likely. Jamar Chase, we went there with that, cashed it. Henry Ruggs went there with that, cashed it. Van Jefferson kind of fits that as well. You look at his game so far this year, he's getting some decent work. There's no doubt about it, but longest receptions in each game, 22, 21, 14, and 67. So they're definitely giving him opportunities down the field. You've got Higbee underneath. You've got Cooper Kupp. You've got Robert Woods. There's a lot of guys that Seattle's going to have to focus on. And this secondary hasn't been good to begin with. So I don't mind that. I'll say this. If you like Van Jefferson over 43.5, you have to like over 20.5. I think that's really the move. I'm not saying I don't really have a line on Van Jefferson for myself. I don't see anything that stood out from him, but I do love the idea that if you're going to get to certain guys, you might as well go to the longest reception because that's really where the value is.
Anything else before I hit you with a major monster teaser that I'm going to tell you? This isn't even lock it up confidence. This is beyond. This is going to hit. I'm just curious. Is there anything else from Thursday night? Do you like over 73 for Coastal like I do tonight? Because I think you can get about 20 points from Ark State, and that's enough to go over 73.
So before we get to your shenanigans, I do want to say, friend of the show, and I will be on with him on the Awesemo DFS channel soon enough in a couple hours, breaking down this game in full. Laffy just said that Calvin Ridley is out Sunday. If you like the Jets in that game, now is the time, clearly. This is not going to help the spread in that regard. The Jets are a 3-point dog. That could easily tick to 2.5 against Atlanta. So if you want to use that news to your advantage, run to the window right now.
They opened up at 4. You want to know why? Or how I know?
Jets.
Because I jumped in. And they were at 4. A London game. He just seemed like it was a little high.
Yeah, it's a London game.
Yeah. Good. That's huge news, Laffy. And look, that's why I said that you look better than me. At least I understand where my hierarchy is and looks on the Awesemo Fantasy Football Show. Even Savoca looks better, and you're cleanly shaved. Look at that, Rasa. Would you have a job interview today or something?
Yeah, big things going on over here. No, I just needed to. Every so often, you gotta say, okay, you know what? I gotta change the juju. Even though I've been in a nice groove, and we're gonna keep that rolling regardless. But
yeah.
All right.
Wait a second. Wait a second. Is this like Samson cutting off his locks, where all your plays tonight are gonna go to shit because you shaved before the show?
No. I mean, that does. If I have like a horrible betting week, I will.
You got to grow it back.
Change up my look, go mohawk or something, but
we're
not at that level. Before we get out of here, and we'll give a lock it up. I know chat, even though that they make like they're not interested, We'll let you give your piece on this crazy teaser. Go ahead. Explain to me what you've done here.
I don't think it's that crazy by all means. And look, did we miss? Okay, there's Shelton, by the way, over Lockett, 68.5 receiving yards. Yeah. Yes, I think that's a really good one. And Aaron Brown has the 49ers upset in the highest scoring game this week. So I imagine he's locking the over up if that's the case at 54. But okay, here's what I have. Okay. And I'm taking 4 teams. I've moved this 13 points on a teaser. All right. And I'm telling you, this is going to hit. Cincinnati has been dropped down to a 16-point home favorite against Temple. I don't think that line, I wouldn't trust them at all. It's a major letdown opportunity to cover 29 points against anybody. So I've dropped Cincinnati to 16 at home against Temple. I like Arizona Arizona State, where they are now. But I also recognize that Stanford can throw a little bit of a wild card, although I don't think that they're building off of anything last week. Arizona State outright beat UCLA. They earned that victory. But I've moved them in this teaser now at home, plus 1.5. I'm sure of the 4 legs, the most unnecessary. But that's number 2. And then these 2. Alabama has now been dropped to minus 4.5 on the road at A&M. And Georgia has been dropped to 1.5 on the road at Auburn. Come on, Rasa. Even you can't have a major issue with this teaser.
Okay. So you gave 4 sides, right?
Correct. Cincy minus 16, ASU plus 1.5, Bama minus 4.5, Georgia minus 1.5.
Okay. So I have no real problem. I actually have Arizona State in some teasers of my own. I don't like crossing 0. You don't really want to do that, but I don't think
I know. I could hear you scolding me in my brain, by the way, as I punched this ticket.
Step 1. So a couple things on 13-point teasers before we get out of here. We'll dive into a little evergreen. You need at minus 140, you're looking at 85.9% per leg to break even. That's the break even rate. So when you move these games, you need to think that there's an 86% chance or better that each one will win to come out ahead. Number 1 rule, you should try not to put totals in there. Moving totals is not enough value to do it. So sides is really good. I like those sides that you mentioned. Georgia's a buzzsaw. Alabama's a buzzsaw. Stanford should have lost to Oregon. Credit to them for winning, but Arizona State's going to beat them. And Cincinnati is just good. They have no margin for error, and they need style points. A lot of people are talking about Cincinnati potentially being a playoff team. If that's the case, they have to roll every team imaginable, and Temple has no chance whatsoever. So I don't mind it. The key with sweetheart teasers and whatnot is you still want to be cognizant of exactly what you're doing, in these numbers. So keep that in mind at minus 140, but I'll be honest, I do like those sides, and I hope you're cashing that ticket at the window.
That's as much of a victory off the field as I'll take. That's Ben Ross's seal of approval. All right, you know where I am. Under first half, 26.5 points. That's my lock it up tonight. But Ben, as we always, you leave us with something to think about. What's your lock it up play of the night?
So again, I just want to give a quick shout out. Certainly, if you guys are new to the channel, we love to see the view count growing each and every time we do the show. It's really exciting. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and of course, you will see plenty of showdown content on the Awesemo DFS side tonight. But I'm going to go back to Tyler Higbee. I really think in this game, they're going to make a priority to try to stop Cooper Kupp. And I know he's going to get his targets. He's had double digits in every game. But I think Stafford will be very content to get Tyler Higbee involved. Over 3.5 receptions. I believe it's minus 125. Tune into the show tonight because I'm going to revisit this. I have a feeling during that show, it could be upwards of minus 130, minus 135, and keep rising. So to me, that's a good one to jump on the night. Hope the Rams win. I think we're lined up pretty good here.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Make sure you're following on Twitter at JazzRazDFS, at Shander Show for me. Take full advantage of what we've been telling you here with BetMGM. Use our promo code Awesemo. We'll give you a risk-free bet up to $1,000, and you bet $10 at BetMGM, and we're going to give you 3 free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Thanks to BetMGM. Thanks to Jordan producing. We've done enough, my friend. We're back tomorrow, and then we really get to dive into the weekend. And a couple of Friday night games. Don't think that that's not happening in college.
College, NFL, anything else you guys want, you just hit us up on Twitter at Shander Show, at JazzRazDFS. We will have you covered, and we might talk some futures tomorrow. So good luck, everyone, tonight. Enjoy the game. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place.
See ya. definitely futures.